This is DJ Shadow with Tomer Gershenman, and I'm on Jigga Juice. Check it out.
DJ Shadow, thank you so much for doing the interview.
Thank you.
You've actually been to Israel. How do you remember the experience?
It was good. Yeah, I was there twice. First time I think in 2010, and then again in 2013, I think.
Were you exposed to some local beat makers or DJs or producers?
No, I wish I could say I was, but not really. No, it was pretty much just in and out in the middle of a tour.
I got you. I got some things to bring you afterwards. But let's go back before that. When did you actually start making music?
Started making music in, I guess you'd say about 89. I had a 4-track cassette recorder, and I started just using my turntables to loop up old samples and beats and stuff like that, and then layer other people's acapellas over the top, and that's kind of how I got started.
And who were your influences growing up?
Definitely Grandmaster Flash. One of his singles called The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel was a big influence, and pretty much the template for what I think a lot of producers and DJs ended up doing later, which is taking music from different sources and putting it together to create something new. And I think later people like DJ Premier was a big influence. The Bomb Squad, Marley Marl, mainly all the old school hip hop, golden age, producers in the 80s and early 90s.
So that's pretty much how you got into hip hop too, with Grandmaster Flash and everything.
Yeah, actually. And growing up on the West Coast of the States, we also had a lot of West Coast rap as well. And I think for me, I always knew that hip hop came from New York, and that's where it was kind of pure, and that's where the culture was. But at the same time, I tried to keep my ears open to the rap that was coming out of like Seattle and LA and, Houston and Miami and other places too.
Yeah, and you mentioned the West Coast, and obviously you are now in part of Mass Appeal, but you were also part of a Quantum project in the Bay Area. Are you still rocking with them?
Well, that's kind of like a family scenario. We were all together 20 years ago, and longer, actually, almost 25 years ago. And we used each other to kind of get ourselves rooted, and we were all very good friends. But I think like a lot of families, you drift apart through the years. Everybody has children now, and everybody has responsibilities, and they all pursued their own dreams, and just like I did mine. And we all come together once in a while, and it's a family vibe. But at the same time, it's not like the old days where we were, kind of rolling as a crew.
Any chance of hearing collaborations of you with these guys again in the future?
Maybe I wouldn't say no, but at the same time, I've done things with Latif recently, and we're always there for each other if it works out. But I think we also all feel like there's a lot of other things that we want to do. So,
and of course, Quantum, they come from the Bay Area. You come from the Bay Area, and there are a lot of crews. The Hieroglyphics crew, or even the Sway and Tech show that was based there. So was there a lot of inspiration going on in that area?
Yeah, definitely. People like, rappers like Paris, they were heroes to me, and even producers like Dan the Automator. He put out a 12-inch called Music to Be Murdered By in 1989, and to me it was really important to see somebody that I felt like understood what hip-hop was, what the music was about from the Bay Area, because it wasn't just a rap record, it was a hip-hop record. It was kind of instrumental hip-hop. It was very Mantronics influenced, and so all of the people that came before me, definitely Hyro, and then later people like Peanut Butter Wolf, and these were all big influences for me.
And now your new home is here in Mass Appeal alongside Nas, Run the Jewels, and even the J Dilla and the Pimp C catalogs coming out on Mass Appeal. So is that what drew you in, the roster?
I think, that's part of it, obviously. I mean, it's nice to know that my hip hop roots will be, understood and embraced, but it really just came down to who I felt was most enthusiastic about, my vision on this album.
And it already spawned an amazing collaboration with Run the Jewels. I heard you say in an interview that the whole production was really tailor made for them. Did they feel it immediately when they heard the track?
I hope so. I mean, what I sent them initially was just a demo. It didn't have any horns on it. Um, and it was pretty basic, but I just sort of felt like if they will rock on this beat, I knew exactly, where I wanted to take it, and I wanted it to be something that maybe or L and Mike on their own wouldn't necessarily do. And that's why I wanted to add the horn section. To me, that just felt natural. It felt like something that I could bring to the table to make the collaboration bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be like what they usually do on their records.
Exactly. Yeah.
By the way, now that you and Nas are on the same label, any chance for collaborations with him?
I mean, we'll see. But actually, the Run the Jewels collab happened before I was even on Mass Appeal. I mean, I've been a big LP fan for a long time, and have been really inspired, his reinvention of himself. And to me, it was, yeah, it was something that I kind of wanted to do pretty early on in the process of making the record, and I didn't actually sign with Mass Appeal until a few months later.
But speaking of collaborations, you've worked with such a diverse list of artists from from Cool G Rap to Tom York, and that just on one record. Is it the same as how you described it with Run the Jewels, when you make the track and you instantly know which artist is going to sound well on this track?
Not necessarily. It depends. I mean, I think that usually a song works best when you have a demo, you know who you want to get, and you're able to get that person. But it doesn't always work out that way. Um, in the case of like the Uncle record that you referenced, a lot of those A&R choices were James Lavelle's, and some of them ended up being some of my favorite work I've ever done. But I think it all comes down to my enthusiasm for working with that person, but also their enthusiasm for putting all of their energy into the collaboration. Usually that's when collabs work best. If people just kind of show up and they're not really that engaged, or they don't really, sometimes you feel like, well, I don't even know why they agreed to do it, because maybe they don't have such a positive energy or something. Sometimes those songs are harder.
Yeah, especially these days where people don't even come to the studio with you; they just send the verses in.
Yeah, but I collabed with a UK jazz artist on the new album named Matthew Halsell, and even though we didn't meet in person, um, I think our setup via phone call and email was thorough enough that it made for a really good collaboration.
Yeah, and when it comes to these kind of distances, it makes more sense. This year you're going to release your new album, but other than that, this year also marks 20 years to your classic introducing album. What do you think makes that album so special, especially now in retrospect?
I think in the case of introducing, I mean, I think it had a lot of things going for it in the sense that it was an introduction for most people. It was their first impression, and I think also there's usually a lot of things that you can't control, like time and a place and a movement, that's happening without your control. And I think all of those played into introducing and how well it's received. I mean, I think that's something that it took me a long time to realize, that there's a lot of things out of your control. You know what I mean? That makes something a success. And I think when it happens, you just enjoy it and be grateful for it.
How did you craft that album?
Um, Introducing was, I had made a lot of singles and done a lot of production for other people, but um, actually, I mean, there's a single that I put out the year before called "What Does Your Soul Look Like?" Part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that was supposed to be the beginning of my album. And then Moac said, "Well, we want to put this out as a single." And I said, but it's 33 minutes long. That's a lot of work, just to release as a single. So I felt a little bit um, like, this is going to be really difficult to start over now. And I remember feeling, quite stressed out about it at the time. But um, there was a lot of musical inspiration around at that time. I mean, drum and bass was emerging, and hip hop was definitely becoming more regional. I mean, you had interesting ideas coming from the South and from places like Cleveland and Detroit and other places that, you know, hadn't really had a say in hip hop prior to that. So all of that was inspirational to me.
And do you think it changed the way that in which people look at sampling, that it legitimized it in the eyes of many people?
I think it legitimized sampling for a lot of people that maybe didn't listen to a lot of hip hop. Um, and I became aware of that actually at the very first show in the U.S. that I had to celebrate the release of the record. It was held in L.A. and there was somebody that's later somebody told me was Courtney Love's manager, and I was doing like an introduction set playing hip hop, of course, because those are my roots. And he leaned over and he was like, "Shadow, what's up with all this rap shit?" You know what I mean? And I think he thought that I was like a rock artist coming at, approaching hip hop rather than a hip hop artist approaching all these other musics. So I remember being quite shocked by that, and then realizing that maybe there were a lot of people that were embracing the record that I could never have imagined. You know what I mean? I could never have chosen such a wide ranging group of people to embrace the record.
Another one of those things that you can expect, what you said.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, and other than the 20 years to introducing, this year also marks 10 years to the Outsider album, and a more rap-oriented album. Was that sort of a counter reaction to these responses you were just describing?
Well, I suppose on a certain level you could say that, but I think that more than anything, I think that, when you're young and you're in your 20s and you have all this sense of freedom, and I used to, do mixes using just Funk 45s and things like that, and I had my crew, Quantum Soul Sides, that we did rap records, and then Introducing came out, and suddenly there were eyes on everything that I did. And as a result, it kind of made you focus. And I decided on The Outsider that I didn't want to compartmentalize all my musical output. I wanted to be able to do it all in one record. And I think if people weren't aware of all my other interests, they might not have understood what that record was about. But to me, it was, I sort of shrugged and just said, well, that's not really my problem. You know what I mean? This is what I am. Um, and I could point to many, many other steps and projects through the years that could have educated people if they wanted to dig a little bit deeper. But if they didn't, then I guess their reaction was, well, this doesn't sound like Introducing, so I'm not interested. So to me, I just sort of realized that there were a lot of fans of the album Introducing that weren't necessarily DJ Shadow fans.
Yeah, they just like this specific body of work.
Right.
A lot of the guests on the Outside album are Bay Area rappers. Did you sort of want to represent the area?
Well, certainly. I mean, I got my start working with Bay Area MCs. My very first studio job was doing production and scratching for a rapper named Paris. So to me, again, when people were shocked that I was working with Bay Area rappers, I was sort of bemused. I just didn't know what to say because to me it was very natural, very much a part of who I was. Um, yeah,
Your home base.
correct.
And of course, we have to talk about the art of digging. How much time do you spend digging these days?
I mean, I spend a lot of time watching eBay auctions, and occasionally I'll buy some things off of Discogs. And but I don't have. I mean, I don't do as many trips as I used to do. I still do some, but it's harder and harder to find interesting reasons to want to get on an airplane and drive for 2 weeks or whatever, and get really dirty and tired looking at records, because um, in the old days you were looking at untapped caches, you know what I mean, and it's very difficult. There's almost none of those left. So once every few years, maybe my friend and I will find something interesting, and it'll be a reason why we start a trip, and then we kind of go from there. But times have changed, and it's a little bit different. I mean, I still end up buying probably maybe 100 records a week, so I still buy a lot. But it's hard to find warehouses of that haven't been picked through.
Yeah, and then even just as a consumer, I was walking through the village yesterday. So many of the record stores there are shutting down. It's so sad.
Yeah, and I mean, the stuff you're looking at, it's all been researched and it's all been priced according to the internet value. And I like to buy records that are cheap, that nobody has a value assigned to, because I don't consider myself a trophy hunter. You know what I mean? I'm interested in discovering music, and I have a price point in mind for what I think is acceptable for that. Occasionally, of course, I'll spend a lot of money on a record if it's something that's close to my heart or I've been looking for a very long time. But in general, I'm not a rich man, so I can't spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on records anymore.
And of course, there's that bit on Scratch about everybody ending up in the basement when their career dies. So do you feel like that by sampling these artists whose career is now in the basement, you sort of rejuvenate those artists?
Well, I think there's no question. I mean, to use uh, somebody else as an example, I mean, DJ Premier made an iconic record with Gangstar sampling Marlena Shaw, California Soul. And then as a nod to that, Cut Chemist and myself played that in Brain Freeze. And whether some ad executive grew up being a Gangstar fan or a Brain Freeze fan, for one of those reasons, they decided to use California Soul in a car ad in the States. And it's a big nationwide campaign. And so I'm hoping that, now that song becomes part of the mainstream again, because it was a great track originally. DJ Premier, who's a great artist also, um, found something that was fairly obscure, that never was very successful originally, even though it was a very good track. And then as DJs, this is what we do. We try to find interesting sounds that we feel like people should know about. And sampling to me is just another way of doing that.
In an important way. So I know the new album is coming out very soon. So what can you tell us about the album? It's been 5 years since the last one, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I stay busy doing other things, but I never really considered myself, an album-oriented artist. But I feel like occasionally the time is right to do that, and yeah, I'm proud of it. I mean, it's a record that I feel like is quite pure, in the sense that I didn't hold anything back in terms of my influences or who I wanted on the record. But at the same time, I feel like the record is not trying to be, there's not a lot of famous guest stars. There's really only a few features on the record. And I wanted to make sure that my own voice was felt throughout the album. And I'm proud of it. I mean, I went into it wanting to work with a lot of other instrumentalists. Nils Fromm, Matthew Halsell, G. Jones, and Bleep Bloop. And there's 2 rap tracks. Obviously, Run the Jewels are quite famous, but the other rap track is mostly unknown MC from the Bay Area, and I just felt like he would do a really great job on that track. So to me, it's not about having the sexy look, if you know what I mean. It's about making a record that's pure and that reflects my taste in music.
Well, as I said earlier, some artists, some tracks require this and that artists, and no need to force it.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like when if I were to reach out to an artist and have to convince them that, or have their manager tell them it's a good look or any of that, then I probably don't want that person on the record. I want people on the record that are going to um, bring something to the table and also benefit from the experience. And I find that usually it's um, maybe up and coming artists that feel that way, or artists that are already very established. The ones who are big now are the difficult ones. You know what I mean? The ones who are having the moment right now. Those are the ones that I feel like can be difficult because they don't have maybe some perspective yet.
Yeah, you need those instincts. And Run the Jewels, they are big now, but but they both went through their grind. They been through a lot before they became big.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, each of them in their own way, and obviously LP for longer. But yeah.
Do you have a favorite track of the album?
There's tracks I'm very proud of. I mean, if I had to pick, I feel like the song Ghost Town represents a good example of what I wanted to bring to the table instrumentally. Um, Also, Suicide Pact and Ashes to Oceans, which are all very, very different tracks, all instrumental. I really love the Run the Jewels track because I feel like if I remove myself from the process of making it, and it was a long process, to me it's a successful track. You know what I mean? I listen to it and it's like it ends and I think to myself, yeah, that's good. You know what I mean? I like it. Some tracks I don't have that relationship with. I mean, I like everything that I do, but that track, when I play it, it feels efficient and it feels fun and hard hitting. And I don't always make music that comes out that way.
So I'm glad you managed to convey that too. Who do you listen to in hip hop these days?
I mean, I definitely feel like I listen to. I don't really listen to a lot of like quote unquote pure hip hop or like true school kind of spirited hip hop. I mean, I listen to a lot of you know southern rap and kind of trap rap and um, yeah, or like I mean, working on a mix right now for the BBC, and it's a lot of like up and coming mixtape rappers like Kodak Black and people like that, or obviously I like Vince Staples as a writer, and obviously Kendrick and a lot of the stuff happening in L.A.
Did you like the new Chance the Rapper mixtape?
Coloring Book. Yeah. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet because I've been so busy, but that and the new Radiohead album I'm still needing to listen to.
DJ Shadow, thank you so much for doing the interview.
Thank you very much.
Peace.